Hello everybody, hope you're all doing fantastically well. It's Connor, we're back here with another One Leeds episode. Today we're discussing a few bits before we start. Make sure you like the video as always. Please make sure you are subscribed as well to the One Leeds Fan Channel. We've got some big videos coming this week as well. We've got a bit of a predictions vid that I think you guys will enjoy coming out either today or tomorrow. Probably release that on the Patreon beforehand as well. But if you want to head on over to the Patreon as well, we've got more bits over there, everybody, including Across the Pond, Generation Leeds, and a little segment that I'll be doing with Oscar next week as well, rolling into the Premier League returning, the Championship returning, and all that sort of good stuff that we're excited about. England lost last night. Good Lord, all I will say is if you're watching that England game, you need to flip that switch and watch France-Germany, because blimey, the glaring contrast to England-Brazil, and England, just in comparison to Brazil, to be honest with you, Endrick, Vinny Jr. and co, in comparison to some of the slouch, slack, poor football we play is just staggering. And I'm a little bit worried about the competition this summer now. But we're not here to talk about England here. We're here to talk about Leeds United and why Joe Rodon is so important to Leeds United. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because there's been a few rumours this morning that Newcastle are going to make an aggressive sort of approach for Joe Rodon in light of Sven Botman's long-term injury issues. Obviously, Newcastle, we were talking about PSR, PSF the other day, and we were discussing how it's limiting clubs massively to hit that upper echelon when it comes to talent, when it comes to signings, when it comes to, recruiting some of the best centre-backs in the world, and that is what's hampering Newcastle at this moment in time. They are really not able to bash through that ceiling that someday we hope as Leeds United fans we're able to do. So you've got to look at their options right now. There's a likelihood that they're going to be selling some homegrown players. We spoke on the channel about Sean Longstaff being a potential long-term target for Leeds United. Now, it looks like Newcastle are apparently going to be making a forward line aggressive, as I've just mentioned, approach for Joe Rodon in the summer, according to some reports. Has to be said, one of these reports is Team Talk. But it does feel that this one could be a little bit more believable than people think. Whoever you are, if you are playing for Leeds United, we saw this with Ben White. I thoroughly believe that if you had Ben White playing for a Derby County, he wouldn't have got as much notoriety as he did being at Leeds United. It is the bigger club. It is the club that is naturally going to get more headlines because we are on Sky Sports all the time. We have a massive global fan base. And there's just, I know it sounds ridiculous, everybody, but speaking to people in the biz, you really, really, really would be surprised by how much of an impact social media. It really comes down to it. It can come down to something as basic as social media. Not in terms of signing a player because of social media, but the notoriety of an individual's name is so much more when it comes to social media, trending, all those bits and bats and all that sort of stuff. So it's ridiculous when it comes to that sort of stuff. So listen, Ben White was everywhere when he was at Leeds United. Everybody was asking about him. Is he going to come to Leeds? Is he going to go back to Brighton? Who else is going to sign him? Are Leeds going to be able to sign him when he gets to the Premier League and all this sort of stuff? He was trending all the time when he was playing on Sky Sports, and Joe Rodon is doing the exact same thing. He's doing interviews. He's more of a voice. We're seeing him on Leeds United's YouTube, Sky Sports YouTube channel. The Welsh national team are doing loads around him, and the numbers around these sorts of things are blowing up. Connor Roberts even said, my Instagram followers and when I used to do interviews, essentially at Burnley and Wales, were nowhere near what they've been at Leeds United when it's come to numbers and stuff. So more people are looking at what Leeds United are doing to another club. Who's part of the fabric at Leeds United at this minute? Joe Rodon, Connor Roberts, etc. But Joe Rodon in particular is causing a big stir right now because he's been absolutely excellent in the Championship. So what is that next step for him? Are we looking at a potential bid coming in? He's obviously not our player. We want him to be our player. The natural responses on a lot of these posts that include Joe Rodon are, this is a crap source. But it's also something that I've said from the start with Joe Rodon. I think a lot of our fan base genuinely think that it's just going to be us in this race when it comes to Joe Rodon. And I think there was a lot of our fan base who actually thought it was going to be us and us only when it came to Ben White. And there was almost like a sort of unwritten guarantee in a lot of our minds that we were going to get him if we were going to go up. But football doesn't work that way. And it's going to be fascinating to see how Tottenham go about this. The contractual difference between Ben White at that stage in his career to what Joe Rodon's stage is completely different. You know, Rodon's got, a year left on his deal, which should make him significantly cheaper. Will Daniel Levy try and test the water anyway when it comes to Joe Rodon? How much can he push Leeds United? I think Leeds are in a bit of a precarious predicament when it comes to Joe Rodon. I'm going to explain to you why, because it feels like he's the only guarantee next year of Leeds having an out-and-out quality defender as we speak right now. You know, signings are probably going to be made. We know that. But the amount of signings is going to be large. You know, you look at the dependability and reliability of some individuals in our back line, the contract length, the amount who are on loan. You know, we look at even players like Cody Drame, Luke Ayling, contracts expiring of Jamie Shackleton, of, you know, injuries, Junior Firpo. Listen, there is a lot when you look at that back line. Injuries again, Pascal Strout, you know, Ethan Ampadu's probably going to be pushed into the midfield if we get to the Premier League. Of course he is. You know, Archie Gray, is he going to be a defender? Probably not, and he's a young lad going into the Premier League. We've got to take that into consideration. Charlie Cresswell, he's an under-21 who's shown that he can prove in it, but there's not many. There's really not many when you look at that defence. And Sam Byram, injury. You know, we go through that entire squad and there's loan signings who are pretty much going. There is contracts which are expiring for players that you would probably turn around and say, not sure. Connor Roberts is on his last 12 months. Joe Rodon, as I've just mentioned, is on his last 12 months. But what that means is you're going to get a lot of clubs circling these players as well, because they're proving that they're really decent players domestically and for the national team as well. And they're going to be at a cut price because they've only got 12 months left on the deal. So they're going to be cheaper for clubs as well to come in and buy. So I think Joe Rodon is going to really have more interest than people think when we go into these summer months. But the defensive structure at Leeds is so interesting right now because there has to be some major developments on that. And as I've said, you can almost split it into categories and they overlap. Under 21 players who've stepped up, loan players who are probably not going to be coming back, reliability, dependability when it comes to certain personnel and injuries, when we're talking about like Strout, when we're talking about Byram, Junior Firpo, you know, and then that adaptability to the Premier League. How many of that back line is also going to be able to make the step up? So it really becomes a case when you look at it and take 2 or 3 steps back of, oh dear, we need Joe Rodon. Now, how far do Leeds United get pressed into buying a Joe Rodon? There's rumours saying that, you know, if we were to remain in the Championship, Rodon would want to come. That's just not going to happen, in my opinion. I think things will move in whoever goes up in the summer transfer window will look at Joe Rodon. You know, you look at even maybe like an Ipswich even, or a Leicester City. You know, if they probably have to sell players on in the summer, which is going to happen, and maybe they can get, you know, Joe Rodon at a little bit of a cut price, or even a loan again, who knows, which is probably going to be quite unlikely with the fact that his availability. You know, you're definitely going to get a team signing Joe Rodon in the summer, if we've been honest with each other. So I think he is massively important. It's a massively important signing because I think he's the only dependable signing that we can get, or we can look at in our squad right now and say he's going to adapt in the Premier League. He's going to be the person who we can say, yeah, we can rely on Joe. As I said, Ethan's going to be going back into the middle. Pascal, as obviously in the Premier League, it wasn't a great time for him, but also he does have a streak of injury issues. We even saw that in the Premier League. Byram, injury issues. Firpo, injury issues, dependability issues, quality issues. Connor Roberts, last 12 months of his deal. Joe Rodon, last 12 months of his deal. So all these things, like Jamie Shackleton, last 12 months of his deal. Charlie Cresswell, is he favoured? So the only person you can really look at now is Joe Rodon, and that's fascinating. It really, really is. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but he does have Leeds in a little bit of a vice grip right now, because he's the only one, in my opinion, that you can look at and say, yeah, he's the man. He's the man. He's one of our defenders who can step up. He's going to be one of our defenders who we can rely on. He's almost captain material. We know Cooper is going to be leaving as well. Another one there. So that defensive structure isn't looking good. So Leeds United are going to have to massively invest, hugely invest in that back line, and we all know that. I don't know if it's going to take Leeds paying a lot more money, if Levy is to increase that. I do think there are better players out there for about 20-25 million than Joe Rodon, as much as, our passion gets involved with it right now. I think there are better players out there than Joe that we can go and get. I really like Anel at Sheffield United. I think he's a quality centre-back. He's someone who I'd definitely be looking at, only 23 years of age as well. So yeah, there are definitely others out there, and I've definitely got a bit of a list of players who I would be looking at as alternatives to Joe Rodon. But let me know what you think in the comment section below, everybody. Is he like the most important player next season to get? And obviously even the centre-back, and we don't want to think about this, but even if Leeds aren't to go up, the centre-back complexity becomes even bigger. Really interested to know your thoughts, everybody. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in a bit.